Fendi, like the bag. This is the I Refuse podcast. Hot like fire, I'm gonna take you, and kiss and kiss. Oh no, no. Hot like fire. Oh no, no. Hot like fire. Oh no, no. Hey everybody. It's Mr. Fox of the I Refuse podcast. Don't mind me, I've had a couple of whiskeys today. And I'm celebrating the release on streaming of Aaliyah's second album. Now, as somebody that stays on streaming, now I have a podcast. We are on streaming. There's like 2 seasons worth of material on streaming services. And being a 90s, 80s kid, I've been following this Aaliyah on streaming release for almost 2 years. Like, they had us going in December of 2019, I believe, saying, oh, she's coming in January 2020. January came, and Barry Hankerson was like, gotcha, bitch! And I don't really have time for that, because I was in my feelings already that Aaliyah was not on there, in addition to Anita Baker, who's not on Spotify still to this day. She's on Apple, but Aaliyah was not either on Spotify or Apple past her first album, which we're not going to acknowledge because, R. Kelly. But let me tell you, those last 2 albums in her catalog, and the Romeo Must Die soundtrack, and a couple of songs, 1 or 2 songs she had on the Dr. Dolittle soundtrack, and I Don't Wanna, which I believe was on Romeo Must Die. Not available anywhere. So today is a big freaking day. Like, it's a big day for this week. And I'm so excited. Like, to revisit One in a Million again. I have my original CDs in storage. I have all of her albums from when they first came out. I think I was like in middle school or high school when One in a Million came out. And everybody in school did the shades or the glasses with the hair over the eye, and did the big Tommy Hilfiger coats and the midriff and everything, even though they weren't built like for the clothes. That's another conversation. But I've been jamming all day and having a huge amount of nostalgia from revisiting that album. For me, like, Aaliyah is and always has been a big deal. And I even remember in high school, a guy that I went to high school with by the name of Wayne Saunders, shout out to Wayne in Maryland, who, like, absolutely adored Aaliyah. And, man, One in a Million was it for me. And then her third album came out. Whoo! So, for those of you that don't know, Blackground has finally got with the program and is releasing a series of albums from the label. Not only Aaliyah, but Timbaland and Magoo, another big one for me, their debut album, and Timbaland's Shock Value, the first one, is going to be on streaming soon. It's a staggered release, right? And then, like, Tank's first 2 or 3 albums will be on streaming too. If I'm not mistaken, I think Under Construction Part 2 will be on streaming too. But it's over for y'all. Mid-September, when Aaliyah's third album comes out on streaming, and Timbaland and Magoo's first album comes out, oh, it's over. We gon' show you how we party. Keep it up. We gon' show you how we party. Keep it up. Also, they're going to release Player's one and only album, I believe. I know two of the remaining members, Castatic, died about 10 years ago in the hospital. Two of the remaining guys are in the latest iteration of Drew Hill with Cisco. I don't believe Jazz or Woody came back, and I know Skull is not back. But they've joined Nokia and Cisco, for those of you that don't know. But that one album from Player, whoo! I know Cheers to You was a favorite on BET's Midnight Love. It's a wrap. Like, once Player comes out, that debut album comes on streaming, and Timbaland Magoo's debut album, and Tank's first three albums, especially that Sex, Love, and Pain, oh, it's going to be a wrap. It's going to be a wrap. But I'm most excited that Aaliyah is on streaming. That will remind a lot of the girls to go back to the lab and get a new sound, or just lock it up completely, because for the longest time, like, we highly revere Brandy, as we should. You know, the verses last year with Brandy versus Monica was a great reminder as to the importance of both of those ladies. I think, unfortunately, the discussion kind of starts and stops there as far as the early 90s and the black pop explosion. Because, mind you, Brandy and Monica's debut predates Christina Aguilera's and Britney Spears' debut. But y'all not ready for that discussion. As is the case in this history, where we tend to be the standard or the benchmark, but the white counterparts get all the credit for the explosion and get more sales. Brandy and Monica, 94, 95. Aaliyah, 1994, around that same time. And, you know, when the verses happened with Brandy and Monica last year, it was very clear that Brandy's career was more front-loaded, while Monica's was on the back end. You know, Monica was able to transition into adult material and keep her fans with her, while Brandy kind of struggled after Full Moon. While she had more of the acclaim in the front end. You know, the first album, iconic. She had Moesha, iconic. The one and only Black Cinderella, iconic. Which, by the way, that should be on Hulu. I'm going to need Hulu to get on that. But oftentimes when you think of, like, that era and how iconic those two women are, like, Aaliyah isn't in the discussion enough. So hopefully with this streaming release and the staggered release between now and the end of September, people can be reintroduced to what makes Aaliyah just as special. Especially when that third album, Aaliyah, the self-titled album, gets on that streaming. Ooh, it is over for y'all. When you think of the sounds and the songs and the music you have out today under the alternative R&B, Aaliyah kicked that off almost over 20 some years ago. You know, shout out to Timbaland and Missy Elliott, who follows me on Twitter, by the way. That's how special I am. Shout out to Timbaland and Missy, especially Missy, who her pen game and her vocal production game, bar none. And it's been like that from day one. All up and through that album, the last two albums, all up and through, as far with Timbaland, all up and through those last two albums, One in a Million and Aaliyah, and then the songs in between on the soundtrack. Like, it gets no better. And hopefully this, as far as how you vocally, you coast and you breeze and you slide and you eat on the songs, will inspire the rest of the girls. Shout out to Normani, who, that Wild Side was cute. I would like to know what's next, though. Um, while it's very clear that Brandy inspired a lot of the girls, Aaliyah should be on that same level in discussion as far as inspiration on what you hear now. Not only in the vocal production, but how, it comes down to phrasing, how it comes down to production, stacking the vocals. I know Beyonce has kept the standard high, but Aaliyah was the one that broke the door open, laid the foundation for what you hear, Beyonce included, and to where R&B is now. Like, it's a wrap. And hopefully, with 1 in a million on streaming right now, that it inspires the girls and it reiterates what you hear now. We over here at I Refuse Podcast, huge Aaliyah fans, especially that third album. When I was in the military, man, that third album was everywhere. We Need a Resolution, iconic. More Than a Woman, iconic. Rock the Boat, and these are just the singles. When you think about I Care For You, Loose Rap, Extra Smooth, I Refuse, I named my podcast after that song. And some of the other deep cuts off that album. Once this generation right now, 95 and after, hear that on streaming. It's a wrap, and y'all are going to be so tired. And I live. Like, come on. So it's going to be a busting summer, and it's going to be Aaliyah's going to be everywhere again, because nobody's buying CDs, everybody's on streaming. So we on the Twitter platform and Instagram platform have been hyping up 1 in a million today, and we've gone out and around the city, listening to the album. I'm on my second or third listen today, and it just came out last night at midnight. So, I mean, what are you waiting for? But understand this, like, what makes Aaliyah special is not only her voice, but her presence and her energy, which is very rare with a lot of performers and a lot of singers. She did pass away in the summer of 2001, and there is still to this day in 2021 speculation as to the specifics prior to her getting on that flight. There are some theories, not going to even entertain that. There are some theories as to the goings on behind the scenes during her R. Kelly phase. Not going to entertain that. We're just going to focus on the light and the music, which lives on forever. And hopefully when you go on streaming, you will get into everything that is Aaliyah. Age and a number? No. 1 in a million? Yes. Shout out to Timbaland and Missy Elliott. The third self-titled album, Aaliyah, with the orange cover. Way ahead of its time. And very special to me, because that was during a time that I was leaving the nest. I was probably like a year into the military. I was in the Middle East for a few months. I was actually on a convoy on the way to an assignment when news of her death came over the radio. And I cried the whole way. So sudden, so sad. Aaliyah was and remains still to this day very special. And I hope this new generation of kids will get into everything Aaliyah. Um, y'all stay on streaming, hyping up JB and um, Ariana and them. It's time to get those numbers over to Aaliyah for the rest of the time, because you definitely hear Aaliyah and Ariana. You definitely hear Aaliyah and Justin Bieber. You hear Aaliyah and Taylor Swift. You hear Aaliyah all the way down to Aguilera and Spears. You hear Aaliyah all the way over to Alina Perez and Kiana Lede, Jasmine Sullivan, Ari Lennox. You hear her in who else? Queen Naja. You hear her in Janae Aiko. There was talk last month or so that they were actually going to be releasing a new Aaliyah album with songs that will include features of men, some toxic men, CB, Future, who was probably on his umpteenth argument with his 18th baby mama. There's Drake, who, alright, but it would have been nice, and I hope Barry Hankerson's probably not going to hear this. I hope they revisit the studio material, the vocals, or whatever they have on tape, and possibly pair that with female artists that Aaliyah paved the way for. With some of the ladies I just mentioned, add to that list Summer Walker, if and when she decides to feed herself and her baby some more substantial food, and separate herself from the toxic energy that is London, and get some sense and get vaccinated. But nevertheless, that would be a much better fit. It's always a good look when artists from the past, or the producers or engineers, put artists of the past with artists that live off of their sound, and you can hear it in their voice. Janae Aiko is definitely at the top of the list. Jasmine Sullivan, Ari Lennox, Summer Walker, Alina Perez, Kiana Lede. It would definitely be a better fit than putting Toxic Men on the hook or featured on the album. Save for Drake, because, I think Drake is okay. Haven't heard anything bad like him beating women or him going back and forth and targeting his baby mamas or exes outside of his music. Even still, it's not even targeted. So it would be something if they would do that. I doubt if they do. I mean, it took Barry a huge tug of war with the estate to even get to this point. So I'll take what I can get as far as what he is compromised with, which is finally putting the rest of Blackground Records material on streaming outside of Apple. But it's Aaliyah week, it's Aaliyah month, it's Aaliyah season, and hopefully y'all get into it. Those that are not familiar with who Aaliyah is and why she is so special, get into those albums and get into that music. So, like I have, and I've been growing up on, and she's been inspiring us out here to be singing all up and through this YouTube channel, and all up and through YouTube. So, I mean, get into it. 1 in a Million is on all streaming platforms. If you're on Spotify and Apple, get into it and play the whole album from the first track to the last track. Shout out to Missy and Timbaland for curating and writing and producing two iconic albums, One in a Million and self-titled Aaliyah, which came out in 2001. That's wild. I believe that'll be on streaming September the 10th. But also get into the other albums from Blackground that will be coming out between now and I think October, mid-October. So we here at I Refuse Podcast, know that we talk about all different kinds of things over here and on streaming. Hit that subscribe and follow button. Also find us on 8 streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple, Overcast, iHeartRadio. We also have a blog. We also have Twitter. We also have Instagram. So yeah, get into us, because we definitely getting into y'all. And we definitely do spill tea up and through these channels. Because who gonna check us? Anyway, happy Aaliyah month. This is Mr. Fox, the I Refuse Podcast. Check you out later.